This place is in shock, as you might expect.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at 20 tragedies of the 21st century that played out live.
The astronauts' families were by the runway in Florida, poised for a great reunion. Instead, this was the picture that we all saw.
Campfire.
Welcome to tonight's press conference for the Campfire, November 10th, 2018, 1800 hours.
California has seen some devastating wildfires, but perhaps the worst of all came in 2018 with the legendary Campfire. This is the deadliest and most destructive wildfire in the state's history, completely destroying the town of Paradise, toppling nearly 19,000 structures, and killing 85 people as it burned through 153,000 acres. The fire was also notable for the extensive footage that emerged, complete with live press conferences and major television networks providing real-time updates, often with stirring aerial footage and commentary. Dramatic personal footage was also streamed online, many showing parents comforting horrified children or panicked drivers navigating through hellish landscapes. It was the cataclysmic fire that captivated the nation.
Holy
It was suffering moving that slow. Like, I didn't understand why not everyone was flooring it. Like, we were all about to burn alive. Like, why isn't everyone like full speed ahead? Like, why are we stuck? Like, why?
Brian Wells. The story of Brian Wells has fascinated people since it occurred in 2003. Wells was a pizza delivery man who was placed in a metal bomb collar and instructed to rob a bank. He successfully took a local PNC bank of about $8,700, but police caught up with him in a parking lot shortly after. Unfortunately, the collar bomb started beeping while Wells spoke to the police, and then it detonated and killed Wells in full view of police and local news cameras. This horrifying scene was captured live by Erie's WJET-TV, but a technical issue occurred just before detonation, so Wells's death was never aired. However, the full tape was later handed over to the FBI and leaked onto the internet.
Within about 4 blocks of our arrival at the scene, we received information over the radio that a bomb had exploded on this suspect. He had still been breathing up until really until a moment before we had arrived.
Demar Hamlin.
To midfield and lowers the shoulder for 13. This is where Joe Burrow is so good. And now another Bills player is down.
You never know what you're going to get with live sports. Unfortunately, sometimes that means horrific injuries and maybe even deaths. That was nearly the case with Damar Hamlin, a safety for the Buffalo Bills. On January 2nd, 2023, Hamlin tackled Bengal T. Higgins, with Higgins' shoulder driving into Hamlin's chest. It seemed like a routine tackle, until Hamlin collapsed to the ground. The injury and the immediate aftermath were broadcast live, with players and commentators showing enormous concern for Hamlin. He was rushed to the hospital, and it was later reported that he had suffered cardiac arrest after being hit in the chest. Luckily, Hamlin recovered, but most people will never forget seeing him wobble and fall.
If you have traumatic trauma to the chest at a very specific moment, as that heart is repolarizing itself, you can go into a lethal ventricular arrhythmia.
The Capitol attack.
A Tennessee man who was pardoned by President Trump has been sentenced to life in prison for plotting to attack FBI agents and attempting to incite a civil war.
The live aspect of the January 6th Capitol attack was unprecedented in American history, not only for the event itself, but also for the way it was witnessed in real time. Major American networks were broadcasting live coverage of the congressional certification of the Electoral College vote. But as the mob breached the Capitol perimeter, they shifted into breaking news mode. With that, live helicopter footage and on-the-ground reporting showed angry protesters scaling walls, smashing windows, and clashing with police. Many of the rioters also live-streamed their actions, providing live documentation from the perspective of the participants. It was a surreal viewing experience, with real-time images of rioters entering the Capitol Rotunda, offices, and even the Senate chamber, smashing and grabbing along the way.
I tried to call the president immediately, and I've tried a number of different ways to get him.
I call on President Trump to go on national television now to fulfill his oath and defend the Constitution.
The Boston Marathon attack.
No matter how many times you see it, it is still just as terrifying.
On April 15, 2013, the Boston Marathon was infamously interrupted by 2 homemade bombs that exploded near the finish line. 3 people died and hundreds more were injured, many catastrophically. The explosions themselves were captured on camera, but most people tuned in to watch the chaotic aftermath when major TV networks interrupted their programming to report on the bombing. Confused news anchors tried to make sense of the unfolding situation, and graphic footage showed victims being escorted away on stretchers or helped by overwhelmed paramedics. It quickly became one of the most viscerally shared terrorist events since 9/11, with the unfiltered footage helping prompt public outcry and national mourning. WBZ-TV and News Radio 1030 would later win a Peabody Award for their coverage of the bombing.
From our entire WBZ family to all of them, we say, thank you for trusting us to share your stories. Thank you.
Christian Eriksen.
Somber mood, but I don't think there's another mood after what we just saw in Copenhagen between Denmark and Finland.
Europe had its own Demar Hamlin situation with Danish footballer Christian Eriksen. It happened on June 12, 2021, when Denmark was playing Finland during Euro 2020. Shortly before halftime, Eriksen was set to receive a throw-in when he stumbled forward and collapsed to the pitch face first, the ball bouncing off his falling body. He was then given life-saving CPR and defibrillation in full view of live TV cameras, panicked fans watching in the stadium. It was later announced that Eriksen had suffered cardiac arrest, but he made a full recovery and returns to football just 8 months later. But people were not happy with watching a man nearly die on live TV, and the BBC received over 6,000 complaints from angry viewers.
In this day and age, we have the best medical people at these games, but I couldn't watch that.
The West Freeway Church of Christ shooting.
Cameras inside West Freeway Church of Christ were rolling.
The concept of live TV is ever-changing, and many people now consider live streaming to be a new form for the 21st century. But the problem with live streaming is that anyone can do it, and there are very few regulatory practices in place to prevent the broadcasting of tragedies. This leads us to December 29, 2019. The West Freeway Church of Christ of White Settlement, Texas, was live streaming its service, as it always did, when Keith Kinnunen entered. With a sawed-off shotgun, he shot and killed 2 members of the church before being shot himself by security. In a span of just 6 seconds, viewers watching live saw 3 people get shot and die, and this footage was later shared throughout the internet at large. The Jacksonville landing shooting.
Katie, Ken, those players were focused on the screen when gunshots erupted this afternoon. In those recordings, you can hear the terror in their voices as people frantically ran for cover.
It was August 26, 2018, and the Good Luck Have Fun game bar on Jacksonville Landing was hosting a Madden tournament. About 150 people were attending the event, including David Katz, a 24-year-old professional Madden player with a history of mental illness. Participants claim that Katz began acting weird after losing a few games and refused to shake hands with his opponents. Around 1:30 p.m., Katz entered the bar with a handgun and started shooting. He fired numerous shots, killing 2 and injuring 10 before taking his own life. Audio and brief visuals of the shooting were broadcast live on the event's Twitch stream, much to the horrified viewers watching at home.
Chaos erupted as employees and bystanders desperately searched for a safe place to hide. One gamer who was at the tournament the day before says it was a friendly game that unfortunately ended in tragedy.
The Gaza War.
Let's just have a look at exactly what happened last year.
Hamas and Israel have been at war since October 7, 2023, and social media continued to follow the event with great interest. Major news outlets and TV networks have continued to air live specials from the region, including PBS NewsHour, which regularly provided live textual and video updates throughout October 2023 as the war began to unfold. Local media channels like Gaza Now have also provided first-hand accounts via satellite and telegram, including graphic frontline visuals and daily war updates. One of the most notable broadcasts was the explosion at Al Ali Arab Hospital on October 17, 2023, with the flash and plume of smoke being widely circulated on social media.
The aerial bombardment of Gaza is continuing for a 4th day now. We know that almost 1,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israel's response to Hamas's surprise attack on Saturday. What's your reaction to what we're witnessing in Gaza right now?
2008 Mumbai attacks. Mumbai, India was hit by a series of coordinated terrorist attacks between November 26th and 29th, 2008. 10 Pakistani militants targeted several locations across the city over the course of approximately 60 hours, killing 166 people and injuring over 300. Numerous Indian news channels devoted themselves to covering the attack as it unfolded, often broadcasting hostage situations, explosions, gunfire, and commandos in action. Journalists also provided minute-by-minute updates, often standing directly outside conflict zones as violence erupted around them. Unfortunately, enforcement efforts were greatly hampered by these live updates, as both the attackers and their handlers in Pakistan reportedly watched the broadcasts and altered their tactics accordingly. As a result, India introduced delayed broadcast guidelines during terror operations to avoid giving away real-time information. The Columbia disaster.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Peter Jennings at ABC News headquarters. In the words of a flight director at NASA, it has been a bad day.
On the morning of February 1st, 2003, Columbia was returning from a 16-day science mission and was scheduled to land at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. 7 astronauts were on board, and NASA TV was broadcasting the landing, complete with a live feed of mission control. But the shuttle began experiencing problems as it re-entered Earth's atmosphere, and as communications were lost and the scheduled landing time passed, viewers saw confusion and concern develop at mission control in real time. News outlets then began reporting shortly after, especially when reports of a loud boom and debris falling from the sky came in from witnesses in Texas. Indeed, at 8:59 a.m., Columbia disintegrated, becoming the second space shuttle mission to end in disaster.
This is Mission Control Houston. Flight controllers here continue in a contingency, securing information and notes. Search and rescue teams have been mobilized to the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
The Boxing Day Tsunami. News channels worldwide tuned into Southeast Asia on December 26, 2004, to cover what is now known as the Boxing Day Tsunami. The most powerful earthquake in recorded Asian history struck off the coast of Sumatra, resulting in enormous tsunamis that measured up to 100 feet high.
Over the next few hours, the tsunami would crash over coastlines from Southeast Asia to East Africa.
These tsunamis crashed into the surrounding coastal areas, killing over 220,000 people. Viewers watching from home were given devastating images of the tragedy, like entire villages destroyed and inundated with water.
It was a big biblical, almost like a CGI event from a film.
The visuals also helped aid in the humanitarian response, with countries from around the world raising $14 billion to help aid in the recovery.
On the first anniversary, ceremonies were held across the region.
Shannon Stone. The ballpark in Arlington opened in April 1994 and was immediately met with tragedy. During the very first game in the stadium, a fan fell over a railing in right field and broke numerous bones. It would be an ominous sign of things to come. Fast forward to July 7, 2011, with the Rangers playing the Athletics. A foul ball went into left field, and Josh Hamilton threw it to fan Shannon Stone, who was attending the game with his 6-year-old son. Stone reached for the ball and flipped over the railing, falling 20 feet and landing head first on the concrete below.
Our staff were very heavy-hearted about this, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the family.
While he was conscious following the fall, he died of blunt force trauma on the way to the hospital.
He was a great father, and they're inseparable.
The Phoenix News helicopter collision. Tragedy can strike at any time, even while covering a seemingly innocuous police pursuit. Phoenix stations KNXV-TV and KTVK were both covering the chase via helicopter and airing it live on their respective stations. During the chase, one reporter yells in surprise while the camera turns to static and a metallic screeching noise can be heard. The anchor back in the station looks at the camera in surprise and simply states, "We don't know what has just happened right there." What happened was that both news helicopters collided in midair, sending both to the ground and killing all 4 people on board. Today, all English-language news stations in Phoenix share one helicopter to prevent further tragedies of this kind.
The safety factor is that those are lives up there.
The death of Dale Earnhardt. When someone is at the top of their game, it seems like they are invincible.
I'm even stronger this year. I'm working out and staying in shape.
Dale Earnhardt is a NASCAR legend, having won 7 Cup Series championships. But his life came to an end on February 18, 2001, when Earnhardt was racing in the Daytona 500.
Dale Earnhardt has died from a crash suffered in Sunday's Daytona 500.
On the very last turn of the final lap, Earnhardt made contact with 2 other cars and crashed head-on into the retaining wall at 160 miles per hour. One of the racers that Earnhardt had hit rushed over to his car and, after looking inside, waved frantically for the paramedics. He knew immediately that Earnhardt was gone, but his death wasn't officially announced for another 2 hours.
We've lost Dale Earnhardt.
The shooting of Alison Parker and Adam Ward. On the early morning of August 26, 2015, news reporter Alison Parker was interviewing Vicki Gardner, the director of the local Chamber of Commerce, about upcoming activities at Smith Mountain Lake. Also in attendance was photojournalist Adam Ward, who was filming the segment for Roanoke's WDBJ. At exactly 6:46 a.m., gunshots rang out and Ward's camera dropped to the ground before footage switched back to the studio.
This place is in shock, as you might expect.
An ex-employee of WDBJ who was fired for volatile behavior committed the shooting, killing both Parker and Ward and injuring Gardner.
I find my grief unbearable. Not hearing her voice again crushes my soul.
A manhunt ensued, and the perpetrator eventually took his own life.
A growing memorial at this station in shock.
The Manila hostage crisis. Philippine National Police Officer Rolando Mendoza was fired in 2009. 1 year later, on August 23, 2010, Mendoza embarked on a tragically misaimed attempt to get his job back.
A tourist bus is accosted by a man who at first makes out to be a policeman.
He planned to hijack a bus and hold it hostage until he was given a chance to defend himself in court. The crisis lasted hours, and the negotiations between Mendoza and the police played out on live TV. But then Mendoza's brother Gregorio illegally crossed the exclusion zone to speak to Rolando, leading to his arrest. Enraged by his brother's arrest, which he saw occur through live news reports on the bus, Mendoza began executing hostages. 9 people were killed, including Mendoza, who was ultimately shot by a sniper.
Pwede naman siguro, ewan ko kung paano ma-block yung parasya sa kanyang sa TV niya.
Hurricane Katrina. Natural disasters are fodder for live TV, as news stations try to keep viewers updated on any and all developments.
The winds have really picked up here significantly over the last half hour.
It happened with the Boxing Day tsunami, and it happened with Hurricane Katrina. Occurring in late August of 2005, Katrina is widely known for hitting New Orleans, where the situation was made worse by fatal flaws in the city's levees.
It's hitting bad right now, Miles. Winds easily gusting to 100 miles an hour.
Most of the city was destroyed and left underwater, and the visuals of such were widely shared in the media. When all was said and done, Katrina caused $190 billion in damage and killed thousands.
Thousands make their way to the Superdome and Convention Center in hopes of being evacuated.
The 2011 Tōhoku Tsunami. Another natural disaster, more live destruction. This one occurred on March 11, 2011, when a massive earthquake struck off the east coast of Japan. It was the most powerful earthquake in Japanese history and caused waves that measured up to 130 feet and traveled almost 430 miles per hour.
It was the largest quake ever known in Japan, and one of the 5 largest recorded in the world.
The destruction killed nearly 20,000 people, and hundreds of thousands more were injured and displaced. It also directly caused the Fukushima nuclear accident, which was also extensively covered in the news, and which also displaced thousands. The tsunami remains the costliest natural disaster in human history, causing upwards of $300 billion in damage.
It's been over an hour and a half, and we're still seeing large tsunamis moving and hitting the area.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. 9/11. September 11, 2001 is a day that will live in infamy.
We believe that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center.
It's one of those days that people will never forget, where they remember exactly where they were and what they were doing when they learned about it. Virtually everything about 9/11 was aired live on TV, immediately following the first plane crash and proceeding throughout the following days and weeks.
The scope of this disaster is impossible to comprehend.
Scheduled shows and programs were halted to cover the news, and viewers watching at home witnessed things like the second plane hitting the South Tower and both towers collapsing in real time. These are indelible images that will forever remain burned into memory.
Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror.
Do you remember seeing these as they happened? Let us know in the comments below.
It's not something I've expected as a newscaster to ever have to say on air.